I sold the house my parents left me, sold my blood, and worked 5 jobs a day just to save a husband who was supposedly dying of kidney failure. Until one night in a torrential rain, I saw him walking out of a presidential suite with his arm around his mistress. In that moment, I understood everything. The illness was fake. The bankruptcy was fake. All my sacrifice was nothing more than a punishment he had carefully designed for me. I didn't scream or cry. I didn't confront him. Instead, I kept playing the stupid, devoted wife, quietly feeding the documents he tricked me into signing, the asset transfer trails, and the evidence of his fake illness straight into auditors, courts, and the tax authorities. He thought I was fighting to keep him alive. In reality, I was preparing a reckoning he would never recover from. Autumn in New York turns every fallen leaf to gold. But my husband, Daniel, told me his kidneys had failed. The doctor said he needed long-term dialysis or he wouldn't survive a year. He also said his company had gone bankrupt. All his bank accounts were frozen. I cried all night. Then I wiped my tears. And the very next day I put the villa we'd lived in for 5 years on the market. It was the last gift my parents had left me. The buyer lowballed me. I signed anyway. The luxury cars, jewelry, and art collections disappeared one by one. The day I moved into a basement in Brooklyn, I owned only 2 suitcases. Cockroaches crawled along the walls. But I didn't have time to cry. I needed money. One dialysis session cost several $1,000s. Insurance? After Daniel's bankruptcy, it was long gone. I worked 5 jobs a day, cleaning office buildings at dawn, working in a cafe in the morning, delivering food in the afternoon, folding laundry in the evening, and doing online translation late at night. My fingers started peeling and bleeding from soaking in cleaning chemicals. I wrapped them in tape and kept scrubbing floors. Still not enough. I saw a poster at a donation center, high-frequency plasma donations. Compensation provided. I went. The needle was thick. When it pierced my arm, I clenched my teeth and stayed silent. When I came out, I was dizzy and had to lean against the wall for a long time. That night, creditors came knocking. A bulky man with a vicious face said Daniel still owed his company money. "Your husband's dying? Then you pay." His spit sprayed onto my face. I kept my head down and repeated, "I'm sorry. I'll pay it back. Please give me a little more time." He cursed and left. I shut the door, slid down to the floor, my hands still shaking. The worst was the night of the storm. I was delivering food on an e-bike. A hotel order, 20-minute deadline. The rain was so heavy I could barely see. I rushed too fast and crashed hard at the entrance of the hotel's glittering revolving door, bike and all. The food containers flew everywhere. Soup mixed with rainwater and washed away. My elbows and knees burned. Mud covered my cheap raincoat. I struggled to get up, trying to pick up the ruined food. And then I looked up. I saw him. My husband, Daniel Wright. The man who was supposed to be lying in a hospital bed, kept alive by machines. He wore an immaculate suit I'd never seen before. His hair was perfectly styled. His face was relaxed, smiling. His arm was wrapped around a young, beautiful blonde woman. They were walking from the private elevator of the presidential suite, chatting and laughing. The champagne glass in her hand glittered cruelly under the hotel's crystal chandeliers. I was soaked, sprawled miserably in cold rainwater. He looked radiant, celebrating something in the bubbles of champagne. We were separated by the revolving glass door. He might have glanced my way, or maybe not. His eyes skimmed past me like I was a stone on the roadside. Then he turned, arm around the woman, and headed toward the hotel bar. In that instant, all the blood in my body seemed to cool along with the rain on the ground. I didn't rush inside. I slowly got up, lifted my bike, and limped away. Rainwater mixed with something else ran into my mouth, salty. I didn't go home. I went to the hospital, to the ward where Daniel was supposed to be. It was empty. The nurse said, "Mr. Wright? His condition is unstable. He's under observation in the ICU. No visitors allowed." I nodded and said nothing. I knew exactly where he was, in a champagne-filled hotel suite, but I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what kind of scam this illness was. A few days later, I left the laundromat early and hid in an alley across from that hotel. The late autumn wind cut through my old coat. After a long wait, I saw them come out, Daniel and the woman, Lily Moore. They got into a taxi. I followed like a shadow. They went to an exclusive private club. I couldn't get in, so I hid in the shadow of a fire escape around the corner. The back door was slightly open. Music and laughter drifted out. Then I heard Daniel's voice, clear, sharp, like a knife slicing my ears. 3 years of pretending, finally coming to an end. That punishment should last her a lifetime. Another man laughed. You're ruthless. Faking kidney failure? She really believed it, sold the house and the cars. Daniel snorted. She loves me too much. Loves me stupidly. Never questions anything. These 3 years are just the price she pays for refusing to sign off on the company's split back then. I wanted her to know what it feels like to lose everything and work herself to the bone for me. Lily's voice. Soft and sweet. Don't waste your thoughts on that kind of woman. Darling. Our good life is just beginning. I leaned against the cold, rough brick wall and slowly sank down. Images from the past 3 years flashed before my eyes, the pain of selling the villa. My fingers corroded raw, the nausea after donating blood. Creditors spit on my face. The shattered bones and dignity from that rainy night. Like an idiot, I had burned myself alive just to warm a block of ice that had always planned to let me freeze. My phone vibrated. The screen lit up. A hospital payment reminder, demanding the dialysis fee for next week. The number blinked mockingly. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I opened my chat with Daniel and held down the voice button. My voice was calm, almost gentle with concern. Daniel, are you feeling any better today? The hospital called again about the bill. Don't worry. I've managed to get the money. You just focus on treatment and rest well. I love you. Sent. I stood up and brushed the dust from my pants. My face was dry. Not a single tear. After sending that message, I went back to working my 5 jobs a day as if nothing had happened. Only now, I was no longer desperate for money. I began carefully and coldly recording every single medical expense, collecting every receipt. At night, I called Daniel, my voice trembling from crying but laced with a new strength. Darling, I miss you so much. At the hospital, can I just come see you? Just for a moment. I won't go inside, just look at you through the glass. On the other end, Daniel immediately put on a weak tone. No, don't. Emily, the doctor says my risk of infection is high right now. Even if you come, you won't be able to see me. Don't trouble yourself. I'm just downstairs. I'll only look. I insisted. Okay, half an hour from now, he finally said. I hung up and rushed to the hospital, but I didn't go to the ICU floor he'd mentioned. Instead, I hid around a corner in the general ward corridor. Sure enough, less than 20 minutes later, I saw him. He hurried out of the fire escape, still carrying the chill of the outdoors, and slipped into an empty ward. Minutes later, he emerged, now wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown. His hair was tousled. A touch of powder made his face look pale, and he lay on a stretcher, pushed toward the ICU by a man dressed as a hospital attendant. That attendant I recognized from hotel surveillance photos, one of Lily's distant relatives. I stepped out of hiding, walking slowly past the empty ward. 2 nurses were chatting quietly by the door. Mr. Right. Addicted to acting? Always changing outfits every few days. Shoo. Keep it down. I heard his wife's practically drained by him. Poor thing. Poor. If I were his wife, I'd have figured it out. Who gets radiant for days every time they have dialysis? When they saw me, they immediately stopped talking, casting sympathetic, avoiding glances my way. I kept my head down and hurried past, playing the pitiful wife role perfectly. A few days later, I went to visit Daniel through the glass. He lay in the hospital bed wearing an oxygen mask, with no tube connected. Seeing me, he weakly struggled to raise a hand and drew a heart on the glass. I covered my mouth and let the tears spill out as if moved to sorrow. Afterward, I texted him, Daniel, you must get better. I've sorted the rest of the money and will hand it all over to you. Once you're well, you can restart your career any way you like. I will always support you. He quickly replied, words tinged with restrained excitement and affection. Emily, my angel, once I'm better, I'll start my business again and give you the good life we had before. Having you in my life is my greatest fortune. I read his declarations of eternal love with a blank expression. Then I accessed his cloud backup on his computer. The password was my birthday. He had never changed it. I began copying, piece by piece, every financial document, authorization, and transfer record I could find. Each document felt like a brick, I would use these bricks to build him a prison he couldn't escape. The files in the cloud unfolded the truth like a giant net. Daniel's company hadn't gone bankrupt. It was a carefully orchestrated, technical split. The core, profitable business and patents had been stripped and transferred to a newly established subsidiary. Through a complex offshore structure, the ultimate owner of this subsidiary was a trust based in the Cayman Islands. And the beneficiary of that trust? Clearly written, Lily Moore. The date was even before he announced his kidney failure. Meaning, while he lay in a hospital bed, watching me sell off our life for him, he had already secretly handed the most valuable part of our marriage to another woman, and I was still scrambling to pay for dialysis. One day, Daniel unusually initiated contact, saying he needed me to sign a medical liability and simplified family finances agreement. The lawyer says this will prevent a lot of trouble and protect you, Emily, he said sincerely on the phone. You know, if something happens to me, I don't want to burden you. I took the thick document to the law firm he specified. Daniel participated via video call, pretending to be ill. The document was dense, but the core clause was clear. I voluntarily waived all claims to any property acquired during the marriage, including any discovered in the future, and confirmed that Daniel Wright currently had no valid assets. All debts were acknowledged and voluntarily assumed by me. The lawyer explained the terms without expression. On the screen, Daniel coughingly weakly, Emily, sign. It's all for our good, he said. I looked at him on screen, eyes red. Daniel, I don't understand all these legal terms, but I trust you. As long as it's good for you, I'll sign anything. I obediently signed my name, Emily Wright, on every page requiring a signature. After signing, I timidly asked the lawyer, can I take a photo of the signed documents? Just as a keepsake, since it's about Daniel's health. The lawyer glanced at Daniel. Daniel nodded slightly, a look of total control in his eyes. Sure, the lawyer said. I pulled out my phone, pretending to take a few photos. In reality, I used preset continuous capture software to record all 78 pages of documents, including every corner code, clearly and completely. As I left the law firm, Daniel said in the video, "Thank you, my wife. Once I'm better, I'll make it up to you." I smiled, showing complete trust. "I'll wait for you." The instant I turned, the smile vanished. In my cloud storage, a new encrypted folder called Gift appeared. Inside were the pieces of evidence they thought long destroyed. News of Lily's pregnancy swept through our already dead social circle like a gust of wind. Daniel no longer officially claimed he was too ill to be disturbed. He tacitly allowed the news to spread. Even at a small gathering hosted by a former friend, I would never have been invited. Perhaps someone wanted a show. Lily walked arm in arm with Daniel, making a high-profile appearance. Daniel looked slimmer but energetic. He tacitly acknowledged Lily's role as the de facto lady of the house. At the party, people's stares pierced me like needles. Whispers kept drifting over. "See her? That's Emily, still killing herself working to pay for her ex-husband's medical bills. I heard she's been selling blood so often she's practically drained dry." Pitiful. Pitiful? More like stupid. Daniel's been fine for ages, and the assets were transferred long ago. She's still dreaming about a loving marriage. A distant relative who once fawned over Daniel and me walked over with a drink, deliberately raising his voice. "Well, Emily, still delivering food? I hear you've been donating blood pretty often lately. Better take care of yourself, otherwise how will you have the strength to take care of a sick man?" Laughter rippled through the room. Daniel stood not far away, talking to Lily. He heard it all, yet didn't even turn his head, as if the woman being humiliated weren't his legal wife. Lily then approached gracefully, her face wearing the false sympathy of a victor. "Emily, don't take their jokes to heart. Daniel can't help it, he's soft-hearted. Seeing how hard you've been working, well, maybe you should start thinking about yourself too." The enormous diamond on her finger flashed so brightly it made my eyes ache. Everyone was watching me, waiting for me to collapse, to cry, or to flee in humiliation. I took a deep breath, picked up a glass of water from a nearby table, I couldn't afford champagne, and raised it. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear, calm, even carrying the faintest hint of a smile. "Lily, Daniel, congratulations. I wish your child a healthy birth, and I wish you everything you hoped for." I drained the glass in one swallow. Silence fell instantly. People stared at me as if I were a monster or a pitiful fool driven mad by shock. Daniel frowned slightly, clearly surprised. Lily raised an eyebrow, tightened her grip on his arm, and smiled openly, triumphantly. That night, when I got home, I opened my laptop and logged into an anonymous whistleblowing platform. I submitted the first batch of organized materials, evidence of abnormal asset transfers in Daniel's company, suspected fraudulent evasion of debt and taxes, to federal financial regulators and the tax authorities. The request formally triggered a comprehensive audit of Daniel Wright and his related entities. In its early stages, the audit moved silently. Daniel continued to enjoy his recovered freedom and Lily's companionship, very pleased with my stupid obedience. Until a month later, when he probably felt he'd acted long enough and it was time to finally cut loose this burden, he summoned me to the law firm again, the same lawyer as before. Lily was there too, lounging on the sofa, leisurely painting her nails. Daniel pulled out a divorce agreement and slid it across the table. "Emily," he said flatly, as if discussing the weather, "there's been no love between us for a long time. Dragging this out is torture for both of us. Sign it. Let's part cleanly." I flipped through the agreement. The terms were blunt and ruthless. I would voluntarily give up all marital assets, though on paper there were none left. Assume all debts incurred during the marriage, and leave with nothing, considering your contributions over the past few years, Daniel added, the corner of his mouth holding a barely noticeable sneer. "I can personally gift you $10,000 to help you start over." $10,000. Not even enough to buy back a single tire from the car I'd sold. Lily let out a soft laugh, never pausing her manicure. I looked up at Daniel. My eyes had to show nothing but humble pleading and reluctance. I'd practiced this expression for a long time. "Daniel, does it really have to be this way? Can't we try again? You've just recovered, you still need someone to take care of you." My voice broke. Daniel waved his hand impatiently. "My illness is already cured. Lily will take care of me." "Emily, wake up. We're over," the lawyer said coolly. "Mrs. Wright, please sign." I lowered my head, my shoulders trembling slightly as if I were desperately holding back tears. After a long pause, I finally spoke in a shaking voice. I'll sign. But could you give me 30 days? A cooling off period? The law allows it, right? Just 30 days, so I can adjust. I looked up at him through tear-filled eyes, full of meek pleading. Daniel and Lily exchanged a glance. Lily's eyes were filled with pure contempt and a smug just as I thought smile. Daniel visibly relaxed. He must have believed I still harbored ridiculous hopes for him, trying to use those 30 days to win him back. Fine. Daniel leaned back in his chair, resuming the posture of someone granting charity. 30 days it is. Come back on time and sign after 30 days. Thank you, Daniel, I said softly, signing the agreement with the note, effective after the 30-day cooling-off period. As I walked out of the law firm, I heard Lily's voice. Not bothering to lower it, I thought she might have some backbone. Turns out she's still trying to cling to you. So pathetic. Daniel said nothing, silent agreement. They didn't know that 30 days was enough for the hidden blade of the audit to reveal its first cold glint, and enough time for me to find another, even deadlier weapon. During the cooling-off period, I was obedient to an almost absurd degree. Occasionally I sent Daniel messages, things like "take care of yourself" or "it's getting colder in New York. Dress warmly." He never replied. I didn't care. Most of my energy went into two things. First, closely tracking the progress of the audit, through public channels and discreet inquiries. I learned that regulators had already noticed the abnormal fund flows and had begun sending inquiry letters to Daniel's company and its related banks. Daniel was starting to panic, but he assumed it was interference from business rivals. He hadn't connected it to me. Second, I re-examined Lily's pregnancy timeline. Based on the gestational age she publicly claimed, the child would have been conceived during the period when Daniel's kidney failure was supposedly at its worst, when he required frequent dialysis. That alone was suspicious. Using a few unconventional methods, thanks to the wide range of people I'd met during those 3 years of bottom-tier work, I obtained some fragmented, non-intrusive medical record clues. For example, the registration date, not content, of Lily's early pregnancy checkup at a high-end private maternity hospital, and the trying to conceive timeline she'd mentioned in certain settings. Cross-checked together, the dates didn't match. The flaw was obvious. The pregnancy timeline Lily claimed was more than a month later than the date she had registered and opened a medical file at the hospital. and during that extra month, before the date she claimed, Daniel was supposedly being rescued in the ICU for a severe dialysis complication. Of course, that part was all an act. One detail caught my attention. Lily had once casually bragged to a friend that her pregnancy symptoms were very mild, that she barely had any nausea and had kept her figure remarkably well. But early pregnancy reactions, especially in the first 3 months, are something most women can't avoid. A bold suspicion began to take shape in my mind. I needed proof. Through a roundabout network of connections, I contacted a private investigator who specialized in medical-related cases. I paid him well and gave him very specific instructions. A few days later, he got back to me. He couldn't obtain actual diagnostic records that would have been illegal, but through other channels he confirmed this. During the same period, Lily was publicly claiming to be pregnant. She had made multiple secret visits to another clinic, one well known for cosmetic procedures and assisted reproductive technology. Combined with the timeline discrepancy, the answer was almost screaming at me. I didn't act immediately. Instead, when Lily posted a high-profile pregnancy bump photo on social media, I anonymously ordered an outrageously expensive maternity skincare gift set and had it delivered directly to the apartment she shared with Daniel. The card read, "To the most beautiful mom-to-be, wishing you and your baby perfect health." No signature. As expected, Lily was even more smug afterward, showing it off in her social circle. "I have no idea which admirer sent it, so thoughtful," she said. She became even more convinced that I was a spineless, harmless loser, so pathetic that even when her rival was pregnant, all I could do was flatter her. She had no idea that the delivery receipt for that gift, together with the records of her visits to that cosmetic clinic, would one day form a perfectly aligned link in the chain of her lies. What I held in my hands was no longer speculation. It was a poisoned dagger, sharp enough to pin both of them in place. Halfway through the 30-day cooling-off period, Daniel's problems began to escalate. Preliminary audit findings triggered a deeper investigation. One of the major banks that handled offshore funds for his network received a regulatory freeze notice. Although only some suspicious accounts were temporarily frozen, it was enough to disrupt Daniel's cash flow. He started making frequent phone calls, his tone volatile. Once or twice, I accidentally overheard him through a cracked door, shouting the names of business partners and accusing them of sabotaging him. His mood became increasingly unstable. One night, he suddenly showed up at my Brooklyn basement apartment. It was the first time he'd set foot there since I sold the villa. He frowned, looking around in disgust at the narrow, damp space cluttered with junk, then exploded at me without warning. "Did you run your mouth somewhere? Someone's trying to take me down." "Was it you? Those trashy people you work with, did they spread rumors?" I acted terrified. I hunched my shoulders, my eyes instantly reddening as I shook my head frantically. "No, Daniel. I didn't. I just work and go to the hospital. I don't know anyone." What could I even say? "Are you too tired? Is something wrong with the company? Please don't get worked up. Your health matters most," I rambled incoherently, perfectly playing the role of a foolish woman frightened by her husband's rage yet still worried about him. My fear and concern seemed to please him and reinforced his belief that I was useless and weak. He waved his hand irritably. "Forget it. Talking to you is pointless. What do you know about capital operations? Just stay out of my way and don't cause trouble." I'm sorry, I murmured, head down, apologizing over and over, my shoulders trembling. He snorted, turned around, and left without another glance, as if staying 1 second longer would contaminate him. The moment the door closed, the fear and tears vanished from my face. I walked to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at the woman in the mirror, eyes icy, completely devoid of warmth. It was time. I opened my laptop and contacted the divorce litigator I had secretly retained long ago, a lawyer known for being aggressive and razor-sharp. I sent over everything I had gathered during the cooling-off period, evidence of Daniel's malicious asset transfers during the marriage, fabricated debts, fraudulent conduct, including indirect proof of his fake illness, as well as the complete scanned copy of the liability waiver he had tricked me into signing. Attached as well were preliminary leads on Lily's falsified pregnancy timeline and its strong connection to Daniel's asset transfers. The lawyer replied quickly, "The evidence is very strong. We can first file suit to invalidate the fraudulent waiver agreement and apply for asset preservation, freezing all traceable assets currently in his name." I replied, "Proceed as planned." Also, sent him a formal legal notice in my name, Inform him that due to his severe fault and fraudulent behavior during the marriage, I am formally filing for divorce, demanding a redivision of marital property, recovery of my lawful share, and compensation for emotional damages. Click. Sent. The first declaration of war, carrying the cold weight of the law, flew toward a man still smugly congratulating himself on his capital game. The lawyer's letter hit Daniel's seemingly calm life like a bomb. At first came shock and rage. He called, roaring, calling me vicious, greedy, shameless, accusing me of plotting against him from the beginning. I listened quietly. When he finally finished, I said calmly, Daniel, my lawyer will contact you. I'll see you in court. Then I hung up and blocked the number. He quickly called from another number, his tone shifting to disbelief and outrage. Emily? How could you? How dare you? Are you insane? You think you can win? I'm telling you, you won't get a single cent. I repeated, my lawyer will contact you. Blocked again. When he realized he could no longer control me with anger or intimidation, his tone changed. The third call, this time from his office landline, came with something I'd never heard before: hesitation, lowered pride. Emily, can we talk? Do we really need to drag this into court and let outsiders laugh at us? I was wrong before. I was under too much pressure. Lily. I'll handle that. We were married. After all, listening to his clumsy performance felt like watching a bad farce. Talk about what? I asked. We can negotiate. The divorce terms can change. I'll give you $50,000? No, $100,000. That's enough for you to start over. Just withdraw the lawsuit, and we'll part peacefully. He named the price, thinking it was astronomical to me. I laughed softly. Daniel, my legal fees alone cost more than that. On the other end of the line, there was suffocating silence. Then, worse news kept hitting Daniel like a relentless storm. The bank freeze expanded. Business partners began to distance themselves. Long disgruntled board veterans seized the opportunity to challenge him, citing major personal legal disputes affecting company reputation and stability, and pushed to marginalize him, stripping away some decision-making powers. On Lily's side, Daniel's cash flow issues delayed the promised luxury home and trust fund installments. She grew anxious and irritable, leading to arguments between them. Finally, Daniel realized this wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was a full-scale siege directed at him, and the one he had thought the most harmless and controllable starting point. I was sitting firmly at the center of the storm. The last time he found me, he somehow tracked me down near the coffee shop where I worked. He looked worn, dark circles under his eyes that even makeup couldn't conceal. Emily, he called, voice hoarse, tinged with a hint of pleading. Let's talk alone, just 5 minutes. For old time's sake. I stopped, turned, and looked at him. In the sunlight, the carefully maintained handsome facade gave way to exhaustion and disarray. Fine, I said. We walked to a secluded alley. He took a deep breath, attempting to marshal his emotions. Emily, I know I was wrong. I'm a bastard. I've been terrible. I hurt you. These past 3 years. I was blind. Lily, she lied to me. She's involved with someone else. I only now realize the one who truly cared about me was you. He reached out to grab my hand. I stepped back, avoiding it. His hand froze midair, his face showing awkwardness and a rare trace of genuine panic. Give me a chance. Emily, let's start over, okay? I'll cut Lily out completely, bring back all the assets, hand everything to you. We'll leave New York. Just the two of us. His words sounded sincere. Even his eyes glistened with emotion. 3 years ago, I might have softened, but now, I only felt amusement. Once his performance ended, I pulled a thin document from my worn bag and handed it to him. Sign this. Then we can talk about your chance, I said evenly. He took it, flipping it open eagerly, but a single glance drained the color from his face. It wasn't a reconciliation agreement. It was a supplemental declaration and complete severance agreement. It explicitly required him to acknowledge fraud, asset transfers, and other wrongdoing during the marriage, voluntarily relinquish all claims to our original marital home, already sold, and other assets that had been transferred, even though they no longer belonged to him, confirm that all economic, legal, and emotional ties between us were fully severed, promise never to contact or harass me or my family, agree to pay a symbolic settlement fee, modest in amount, but significant as an admission. It was, in effect, a document forcing him to sign his own confession and cut off every escape route. You knew all along." He clutched the papers, knuckles white, eyes wide with a disbelief-tinged fear I had never seen before. "Sign. Or don't. Your choice," I said, glancing at my cheap digital watch. "My lawyer is waiting. Your time is limited." His gaze shifted, from pleading, to anger, to complete despair and defeat. He finally understood. From the moment he pretended to be terminally ill while watching me throw myself into the fire. From the moment he walked out of the hotel with Lily, ignoring me. From the moment he tacitly allowed others to humiliate me, thinking I would forever kneel. What remained between us was only a fight to the death, and the one who kneeled first was him. Daniel ultimately refused to sign the severance agreement. He chose to fight it in court. He and his legal team tried to deny everything, claiming the asset transfers were normal business restructuring, and branding my accusations as vindictive, extortionate claims filed during divorce proceedings. Lily also got involved. Before trial, in a media interview orchestrated by unknown parties, she cradled her growing belly, tearfully portraying me as a jealous, psychologically twisted ex-wife, spreading lies to ruin her happiness with Daniel, even implying that I threatened her unborn baby. She gained sympathy from many who didn't know the truth. The courtroom became a silent battlefield. Attorneys sparred relentlessly. My lawyer was methodical, presenting evidence piece by piece, asset transfer maps, offshore trust documents, hotel and club surveillance of Daniel during his illness, incomplete but sufficient to raise doubts, legal analysis of the fraudulent liability waiver I had signed. Daniel's lawyers aggressively challenged the evidence's legality, emphasized the complexity of business operations, and continually highlighted Lily's pregnant status, attempting to sway the judge and jury emotionally. The trial dragged on for days, tense and deadlocked, until the final crucial hearing. My lawyer requested the court summon a special witness and presented a set of new evidence regarding the veracity of Lily Moore's statements. The judge allowed it. Lily sat beside the defendant's bench, face haughty and smirking, gently resting her hand on her belly as if it were her ultimate shield. My lawyer stood, not immediately calling the witness, but first submitting several documents to the court, a timeline compilation of Lily's appointments at multiple high-end medical institutions, including the clinic known for assisted reproduction, her publicly claimed pregnancy timeline, a written statement from a senior obstetrician based on the above timelines, without revealing medical details, analyzing the glaring contradictions and inconsistencies from a medical standpoint. Calmly, my lawyer addressed the court. "Your Honor, members of the jury, the evidence shows that Ms. Lily Moore's publicly claimed pregnancy timeline is insignificant, unexplained conflict with her activity records at medical institutions. During the period she claims to have been pregnant, Mr. Daniel Wright was allegedly in critical care at an ICU. This raises serious questions about the child's existence and the motive behind using it as a moral lever." The courtroom erupted in astonishment. Lily's face instantly changed. She screamed, "Lies! This is forged! You're invading my privacy! My child is real!" She grabbed Daniel's arm. "Daniel, say something." Daniel was stunned. He looked at the documents, then snapped his gaze to Lily, his eyes filled with shock and doubt. My lawyer continued, "To clarify the facts, we request the court summon private investigator Mr. James Cole. He can provide evidence regarding Ms. Moore's whereabouts during specific periods, and activities that contradict her claimed pregnancy." The judge approved. The investigator testified, presenting tracking records and photos taken in public places, legally obtained, showing that during the period Lily claimed she was suffering severe pregnancy symptoms and confined to bed. She was seen out shopping energetically, getting beauty treatments, and even engaging in vigorous aerobic exercise. Lily fumbled on the witness stand, her statements full of contradictions, and ultimately broke down in tears, losing all credibility. My child, it's premature." "Yes. A risk of premature birth. That's why I needed to preserve it. To go to those clinics." She tried one last feeble excuse. My lawyer promptly presented the final piece of evidence, a statement from a former receptionist, legally obtained, at the aesthetic/reproductive clinic, confirming that Ms. Lily Moore underwent non-therapeutic, pregnancy-unrelated maintenance procedures during the exact period she claimed to be on bed rest for fetal protection. Her lies were completely exposed. Lily collapsed in court, her reputation in ruins. Daniel looked at her with a mix of betrayal, disgust, and a profound sense of impending defeat. The ace he thought he held had turned into a poisoned dagger aimed at himself. The judge struck the gavel and adjourned the session. But everyone knew the outcome was decided. Lily's moment of glory, at her proudest peak, had become her public execution. Daniel lost not only his wealth but also, in front of the entire world, became a joke, a man deceived and manipulated by his mistress with a fake pregnancy. Once Lily's lies were exposed, the situation escalated rapidly. Daniel now faced litigation for marital property redistribution. My evidence chain was more than sufficient, and, due to Lily's fake pregnancy, plunged into a deeper whirlpool of public scrutiny and trust crisis. Banks severed ties. The board formally voted to remove him and investigate potential harm to the company. Business partners cut him off. Fearing entanglement, he became completely isolated, with nothing left. Lily, after her lies were exposed, swiftly absconded with Daniel's remaining liquid assets and vanished, reportedly to Europe, but no one cared anymore. One late night, I received a long email from Daniel. No more shouting, threats, or fake pleas. It was a confession. He detailed how, from his initial dissatisfaction, he conceived the idea to punish me, then conspired with Lily to stage the fake illness and bankruptcy scheme. He admitted watching me suffer, enjoying my devotion and foolishness, believing he had everything under control. He wrote, "I thought I was punishing your disobedience. Now I realize I punished the only person in this world who truly cared about me. I lost my angel. My eyes were blinded by greed and arrogance. Emily, I don't regret losing wealth or status. I truly regret losing you." He continued, "Watching you remain calm in court, I realized that the Emily who loved me to death died long ago, in the Brooklyn basement, in the rain-soaked hotel doorway, in every cold turn of my back. And it was I who killed her." He wrote, "If time could reverse, but it cannot. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want you to know that all I am enduring now is justly deserved. You deserve a better life." The writing was sincere, heartfelt. 3 years ago, I might have wept and forgiven him. But now, sitting in my newly rented, clean and bright apartment, paid for with my saved wages and partially advanced legal funds, overlooking the New York nightscape, I read the entire letter slowly and carefully. Then, I moved the mouse, selected it, and pressed the permanent delete key. I blacklisted his email address as well. A confession? Too late. His confession wasn't about apologizing for my suffering, it was about the consequences of his actions finally catching up to him. He didn't regret hurting me. He regretted that the blowback had fallen on him. The next day, I went to the relevant office and officially applied to resume using my maiden name. From today on, I was no longer Emily Wright. I am Emily Carter. A few days later, with a small portion of the property settlement from the divorce, just the beginning, and all my personal savings, I registered a small personal investment fund. The name was simple, Carter Capital. The scale was small, but it was entirely mine. I was no longer anyone's appendage, no longer selling my life for anyone else. I am my own founder, my own investor, my own ultimate beneficiary. The founding of Carter Capital barely made a ripple in New York's vast financial circles. But gradually, some well-informed people began to hear about the name behind the once sensational fake illness marriage scam, the ex-wife who had pulled off a masterful comeback. My first investment was cautiously placed in an emerging environmental technology project. Not because I expected huge profits, but because I had investigated and found a founding team of grounded young people, who had been abandoned by capital for sticking to their principles. Just like me, once. The investment process was far from smooth. There was so much to learn, and I faced doubt and condescension along the way. But I wasn't in a rush, I learned bit by bit, step by step. Meanwhile, the legal liquidation against Daniel continued. The court ultimately ruled to revoke that fraudulent exemption document, recognized his malicious transfer of marital assets, and ordered him to pay me substantial compensation. Although most of the assets were already irretrievable, legally he now owed this debt. His professional career was completely ruined. He was blacklisted in the industry and faced investigations from tax authorities. Lily was countersued by Daniel for fraud, the little could be recovered from her, and combined with her previously uncovered disreputable history, Her reputation was ruined, she had no standing left in New York. As for me, Emily Carter, I began receiving some unexpected social invitations. Some came from people who had once been close to Daniel, or who had observed or participated in humiliating me. They approached with smiles, wine glasses in hand. Emily, oh, Ms. Carter, I've always admired your resilience. That incident back then was really a misunderstanding. I've heard your fund has a good eye interested in learning about some of our projects. Well, Daniel was really a jerk. We've never liked him anyway. I looked at their eager, even slightly obsequious faces, and felt complete calm. I didn't respond coldly, nor did I respond warmly. I merely maintained a polite but distant smile, nodded slightly, and said, "Thank you, perhaps another time." Then I turned and left. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need revenge. They no longer mattered to me. A well-known financial media outlet somehow found me and requested an exclusive interview, wanting me to talk about how I rose from the ruins of marriage and successfully transformed into an investor. I refused. The reporter pressed, "Ms. Carter, don't you want to clear your name, share your inspirational story, and motivate others? Or do you have anything to say about Mr. Daniel Wright?" I thought for a moment, looked at the recording device, and said only one sentence, "I do not forgive." Then I closed the door. Not forgiving wasn't because I still hated them. It was because forgiveness would mean erasing or offsetting all the pain. But that pain was real. Every day I endured was real. I didn't need forgiveness to appear magnanimous, nor to liberate myself. I do not forgive, but I have moved forward. Daniel's fate fell like freefall. Because he could not fulfill the debts and compensation judgments, he was subjected to spending restrictions and eventually even travel bans. The once prominent financial prodigy could no longer even afford a plane ticket out of New York. The tax investigation confirmed some of his illegal operations, and the fines and late fees were astronomical. The last few assets he had that hadn't been transferred or frozen, some relatively worthless personal items and a small account, were forcibly executed. He tried to find work, but the name Daniel Wright had become toxic in the industry. No company would hire him. He had to take odd jobs, with meager income, while still facing creditors and legal claims. His social circle had completely cut him off. Friends who once called him brother now treated him like a plague. He moved into a cheap apartment worse than the one in Brooklyn, spending his days in the company of alcohol. Paparazzi caught photos of his miserable state. They appeared in the corner of tabloids under the headline "From Riches to Ruin," but were quickly drowned out by new gossip. No one cared anymore. He tried to contact me via public phones, newly registered emails, even loitering under my fund's office building. But I had moved. The office had strict security. Emails were automatically filtered, and calls were answered only by my assistant. He could never find me. Once, somehow, he obtained the address of my new apartment, probably from someone still hoping to curry favor, and waited outside for a long time. I saw him when I returned from work. He was curled against the cold wind, wearing an ill-fitting old coat, hair disheveled and streaked with gray, looking 20 years older than his actual age. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he staggered forward. "Emily, Emily, please, just one word, just one," he croaked, reaching for my arm. My bodyguard, yes, I had hired one for safety, immediately stepped forward, blocking him. I stopped, looked at him once. That single glance carried no hate, no anger, no sympathy, no ripple at all. It was like looking at a stranger, irrelevant, slightly obstructive. "Let him go," I told my bodyguard, then turned and walked into the brightly lit, warm, secure lobby. The glass doors closed slowly behind me, fully separating his desperate cries and wretched face from the world inside. I never looked back. From that stormy night, when I watched him walk into the champagne-colored glow with Lily, ignoring me, from the time I lay in the cold, damp basement, listening to creditors insult me, while he slept in a hotel suite, from the moment I knelt outside the hospital finance office, begging for his dialysis fees, while he celebrated the success of his punishment. Between us, there had been a distance farther than life and death. That distance had a name, complete heart death, and he would spend the rest of his life on the other side of that distance, endlessly chewing on the taste of regret. That was no longer a punishment I intended for him. It was simply the inevitable end he chose for himself. I no longer cared about any news of Daniel or Lily. My life slowly and steadily returned to normal, better than before. I no longer had to work 5 jobs a day. Carter Capital gradually got on track, though still small in scale. Several of my investments began showing promising potential. I now had a stable, respectable income. I moved out of the Brooklyn basement that symbolized rock bottom, renting a well-lit, spacious apartment. Not large, but clean, tidy, and safe. I furnished it according to my tastes, and kept a few green plants on the balcony. My body was gradually recovering. I no longer had to donate blood for money or see doctors for overwork and malnutrition. The scars and calluses on my hands faded. My complexion returned to health. I began having time and energy to relearn things, cook a complex dish, go for a slow run in Central Park, quietly read a book I had never had time for before. Some people tried to step into my life. Men I met in business who expressed interest, or supposedly high-quality prospects friends enthusiastically introduced. I politely but firmly declined every time. It wasn't fear, nor a loss of trust. It was simply that I had paid such a tremendous price to finally take my life back from someone else's hands and hold it firmly in my own. I wasn't about to hand the key to open my heart to anyone again so quickly. I needed time to be with myself, to figure out who I truly was, beyond the labels of Daniel's wife, the bankrupt spouse, or the pitiful one, and to discover what I genuinely wanted. One day, at the end of a financial news segment, I noticed a small item. A company formerly controlled by Daniel had completed a full restructuring, and the new CEO was leading its transformation. The article mentioned Daniel Wright by name, describing his departure as due to major personal failings and legal issues. Immediately after, a flash news item highlighted several emerging investment institutions, mentioning Carter Capital. It was only a single line, but included a side profile photo of me at an industry forum. I didn't even know when it had been taken. In the photo, I wore a simple suit, expression focused and calm, eyes looking ahead. I didn't know if Daniel would see the news. Perhaps he did, somewhere in a shabby apartment, catching a glimpse of my face on a broken TV. Perhaps he saw it and smashed the bottle in his hand in anger. Perhaps he never saw it at all, already drowned in alcohol and regret, unable to care about the outside world. None of it mattered. What mattered was that I was moving forward, into a wider world. His name, his shadow, his existence, none of it could stir even the slightest ripple in my life. Like a speck of dust, blown away by the wind of progress, leaving no trace. Long after it all, a highly reputable investigative media outlet contacted me through multiple channels. They wanted to do a special report on systemic gender violence and economic control, hoping I could be one of the interviewees, not as a sensational revenge goddess story, but as a calm analysis of power imbalance, emotional deceit, and economic exploitation in marriage. I thought for a few days and agreed. This was the only, and final, time I would publicly speak about that past. The interview took place in a quiet tea room. No cameras, just a recorder and the journalist's calm questions. I narrated the entire process with a calm voice, from trust and sacrifice to betrayal and deceit, despair, awakening, and counteraction. I didn't dramatize the pain or exaggerate my own role. I stated the facts as if recounting someone else's story. The journalist asked, "Many people see this as a perfect revenge story. How do you view that?" I shook my head. It's not revenge. Revenge means entanglement with him, targeting his pain. I never aimed for that. My goal was always simple: reclaim what was mine, my dignity, my freedom, my life, then leave without looking back. His suffering is merely the byproduct of his own actions, not something I sought. Do you hate him? Now? I did once, deep to my bones. But now? No. Hate is a consuming energy. My energy is now invested only in myself and what I deem worthy. He is not worth a single drop of it. And if he truly regrets, truly repents, would that bring you comfort? I smiled faintly. His remorse means nothing to me. It's like someone stabs you. The blood dries, the scar remains, and then they say I regret it. Does the scar disappear? Does the pain vanish? No. His remorse cannot heal me. It only suits his own conscience, and his conscience is none of my business. After a pause, the journalist asked, "Then what do you feel is the most important thing you gained from all this pain?" I looked out the window. The sunlight was beautiful. Myself, I said. Someone who no longer easily believes in fairy tales, but believes in her own strength. Someone who is broken to pieces but picked herself up, piece by piece, and rebuilt herself. Someone who may never be whole as before, but is stronger, clearer, and fully myself. At the end, the journalist asked, "Do you have any advice for women who may face similar experiences?" I thought for a moment and said, "Do not fear loss. Sometimes, losing the person or relationship that drains and hurts you is the beginning of gain. Never relinquish control of your life, whether in the name of love or anything else. Your kindness must have teeth. Your love must first be for yourself." When the interview aired, it sparked enormous social reaction. My story reached a wider audience, not as gossip, but as a discussion on marital law, financial independence, emotional manipulation, and women's self-protection. Daniel's name was thrust into public scrutiny again, this time as a cautionary tale, dissected and criticized. He was socially dead. Lily was tracked down in a small European town, her life pitiful, briefly featured in media again. As for me, Emily Carter, after the feature aired, I closed all public interview channels. My fund office moved to a more discreet location, and business continued steadily. I did not need the spotlight. I had already stepped into the light. Later, my lawyer told me that Daniel sent word, wanting to see me one last time, claiming he had something very important to say. I had my lawyer reply, "No need. There is nothing left to say between me and Mr. Right." Apparently, upon hearing this, he completely broke down and was sent to a sanitarium. When I heard this, I was reviewing a new investment proposal. My pen paused for a moment, then smoothly signed my name, Emily Carter. Closing the file, I walked to the window, watching the bustling, vibrant crowd below. I was no longer the pitiful woman lying in the muddy rain, gazing at the hotel lights. I was the reborn woman standing here, overlooking the city. Cause and effect never miss their mark. He sowed deceit, exploitation, and cruelty, and reaped betrayal, emptiness, and irreparable regret. I swallowed all the pain and shame, struggled out of the abyss, and won my rebirth, my freedom, and a life no one can ever violate again. This is not a victory of revenge. This is cosmic justice. Self-inflicted consequence. It is, you did not lose to me. You lost to every cause you planted with your own hands. You are not regretful for losing me. You simply cannot bear the cost of losing me. The wind blew in from the window, carrying the scent of sunlight. I turned and walked on, never looking back.